Alright, what is up YouTube? It is K-Rod here. I'm back with another good video for today. I wanted to cover a little bit on what just happened with Tyron Woodley talking about Jake Paul, that they may think you may lose. And basically, like, I'm going to reply on what he said towards Jake Paul, because I find it really interesting that Tyron Woodley, he thinks he has a chance against Jake Paul, which I don't mind him saying that. But at the end of the day, we have to understand styles, and styles make fights in boxing and MMA. Which in MMA, anything happens to a greater degree in the octagon, versus in the boxing ring. Yeah, you got your gloves and you're fighting to see who has ring dominance, inside the square circle. See, now for Tyron Woodley, I respect him as a fighter. He's a former UFC, I think, lightweight champion. I'm not too sure. Welterweight champion. I think welterweight or lightweight. But, he's a good fighter. I've always respected him. I've always liked his attitude on things. He kind of reminds me of like another form of, Rashad Evans in a way. Very, very talented, very crafty. He really has like all the skills to pay the bills, and I think he's had his run at what he did back in the day. Unfortunately, Tyron Woodley, for those of you that did not know, in his career, he got stopped by Colby Covington, and I think Colby Covington is now wanting to fight him in a rematch. I'm almost positive. Yeah, because Tyron Woodley, he lost to Colby, and then Colby said, as of recently, that he wants to fight Tyron Woodley. I could easily see that fight coming to fruition in the future. But let's talk about what Tyron said about Jake Paul, that they may think that you may lose, and I think Tyron said he's going to knock out Jake Paul. See, now, I like Tyron's confidence, but, as a boxing fan and as a, participant in the sport, someone who does box, I don't see Tyron Woodley backing that up in the ring, because I don't really, see that much boxing, technique and IQ coming from Tyron. I mean, yes, he's a good fighter in the UFC, but for those of you that don't know, that are probably going to come in here supporting Tyron heavy, you have to understand that styles make fights in boxing, and your skills and your technique are very important. And I personally believe that Tyron, he's a tremendous fighter, but I don't think he is the type of person that would do well against Jake Paul, only for the sense that Jake Paul, he has been boxing for 2.5 years, but Tyron, his boxing is not to the level of what you think he may do to Jake Paul. And I could be wrong, because Tyron Woodley, he's a big guy. He's very tall. I want to say he's like about 5'11", 5'9". Jake Paul, he's definitely a 6 feet guy. He's a really big cruiserweight, heavyweight type of fighter. I really like his body frame. He's very bulky, very stocky. But Tyron Woodley, his size is pretty up there too. How I really see this fight going down is like Tyron, he's going to apply pressure to Jake Paul. He's not really like the type of boxer puncher that you would see out of him. If he does box intelligent, he could beat Jake Paul. That is something that could go down. But if Jake Paul, if he does what he did in the Nate Robinson fight, where he fights off of his back foot and he uses his cutting angles and catches Tyron with like with like a mean, with like a mean hard hook counter, I think Tyron is gonna go to sleep. I don't see how Tyron really walks away from Jake Paul's jab and his counter left hook that he likes to do. I don't know if Jake is a southpaw or a orthodox. I'm pretty sure he is a orthodox. Uh, Let me just take a look at that Jake Paul fighting stance. I want to say he's a southpaw. Nope, orthodox. Okay, good. So Jake, he's very good on using those left hooks and right hooks in order to, solidify his counters when he sees the opportunity. And that's what I like out of Jake Paul. He's very intelligent of using those counters on time. But with Tyron Woodley, I don't think we've ever really seen any good technical boxing from him. He just uses like the typical like like the pads boxing. Like you don't really see Tyron like actually working on how to move in the ring, how to use his jab properly, and how to solidify the proper combinations and the proper movement reads to make sure when you're going in or when you're coming out, how to fight coming forward, how to fight coming backward, how to use like your L step, how to use your how to use like your reflex jabs, anything that gets Tyron the upper level advantage over Jake. Because yes, we can all say that Tyron, yes, he's been in the game of fighting for quite a long time. But boxing and MMA are two completely different sports. Just because Clarissa Shields is one of the best fighters in boxing does not mean she could translate well into MMA. Which I can see Clarissa doing fantastic in MMA. She looks like she is built for that sport. And she's really good at what she does, and I think when she gets her defensive technique up, she's gonna be whooping girls. And long live Clarissa Shields. She's a lovely woman. Much respect to you, Miss Queen T-Rex Shields. But when it comes to Mr. Tyron Woodley, I don't have that same energy for him. I think Tyron Woodley, he's gonna find that discomfort zone when it comes with him and Jake Paul. And I may be wrong on that because Tyron, he is a UFC fighter. He has a lot of confidence when he gets up in there. But when it comes to boxing, the one thing that is vital in boxing is to have the endurance. And we've seen Tyron a bit gassed out in fights. And I don't think Tyron Woodley is going to keep that same gas tank. If it's going to go like, I think 6 or 8 rounds, right? Yeah, I think it's an 8-rounder, but I mean, if this shit were to go like a full 12, which I don't think that's going to be possible. See, I would respect it if it's a 10-rounder. If it's a 10-rounder, it's actually a lot better. Because, one, Jake Paul, he could just basically tire Tyron out with like a jab. But if it's going to be like a 6 or 8-rounder, Tyron, he's going to be swinging. Jake Paul, he's going to be swinging. And I think this fight will be very interesting to determine if Jake Paul is going to be ready for that type of dog that's going to be tested in him. And I think when we seen Jake Paul fight in the inside, he's a good inside fighter. Like I'm not gonna lie on that. I think Jake Paul, he knows how to break you down onto the inside. But when it's to an outside game, he's a little bit shaky. He leaves his jab wide open to get hard countered. But I think once he gets that rhythm going, it's game over. He knows how to move. He knows how to use his reflexes on time for a good counter. But I think like the way he positions himself, he's right there to always look for that counter, because he knows that if somebody that does have better reflexes in him can actually hard counter him if he tries to throw a punch. I think Jake knows that he's gonna take his time, because he doesn't need to go all in on you. Jake just needs to box, and once he knows how to box, which he is pretty, he's good at using his boxing ability. But once that ability is sharpened up more, I think Jake Paul, he's already ready to beat up Tyron Woodley and put him on his resume to defeat him. See, now I'm not trying to hype up Jake Paul. I don't have a lot of respect for him, as a person, and as a person outside of boxing. I mean, as a fighter, yeah, I'll give him his props. He knows how to throw. Yeah, he knows how to throw a punch, and he's not He's not fucking around in boxing. You can see that he really cares about the sport, and he cares about getting better. So me as a boxing fan, and as a person that does box, I'm gonna have to give him that respect. And I think if he does get past Tyron Woodley, I will not be surprised if people are calling for him to fight somebody that's an actual boxer, because we all know Jake Paul. He's not gonna fight to get like a world title, which I could be wrong. I could be wrong, because I mean Jake Paul, he's a cruiserweight. He's in the cruiserweight division, so anything can go. Like Jake Paul can get up there if he really wants to become a world champion, out of his own weird deluded mind. If he wants to get up to that world title status, by all means go for it. You're young, I'm young, but I think the thing about young people in this generation is that they're not fully committed to what they want to do. For me, I'm committed with what I want to do, and I have a plan for it, and I think my plan will go as as expected, or it will succeed as expected. But for Jake Paul's point of view, I think Jake Paul, he's either thinking like, I'm just going to use boxing to make money. But if Jake Paul wants to become a world champion, and he wants to be recognized as a good fighter, by all means, make YouTube history by you being the first YouTuber in the world. Well, I would never say first YouTuber in the world, but he would be like the first most popular YouTuber in the world to actually commit his life to boxing, but to become a world champion in the sport. Because I think what a lot of boxers don't like out of Jake is that he's picking guys that are matching his style. And I think stylistically, Tyron Woodley would be that next guy on his resume that would be an actual credible win. But Tyron Woodley, he's not a boxer. Yeah, he knows how to box, but Tyron Woodley is not this big, well decorated fighter. I mean, if we want to see if we want to see a real fighter face Jake Paul, I would like to see Tristan Kalkruth versus Jake Paul. If you guys don't know who Tristan Kalkruth is, he's a fighter out of Duncansville, Texas. He's a very good, cruiserweight fighter, and he's tall, he's rangy, he's 6'4". He's really, really good. I mean, he's been fighting since he was like a teenager, like 17, since his pro debut. I think he's 19 now, but Tristan, he is a fucking dog. When Tristan goes out there to fight, he fights his ass off. And I think if a guy like Tristan, would take the offer, against a guy like Jake Paul, I think that makes all the sense in the world. Because Jake Paul, he's a prospect, and Tristan, he's a prospect. But if that fight could be made, by all means, make the fight. Or have Jake Paul versus Tommy Fury. I would actually like to see that fight. Or if Jake Paul can get a fight with Deontay Wilder's brother, Marcellus Wilder, I think that's a good fight too. There's plenty of fights that Jake can make if he wants to put his life into boxing and become a world champion. That is very likely to see out of Jake Paul. If he wants to win a title, the easiest division to win a title, well, I want to say the easiest, but the least pressuring division to be able to win a title possibly would be the cruiserweight division, because nobody doesn't care about cruiserweight. Not a lot of people fight in that division, so I think the cruiserweight division makes a lot of sense for a guy like Jake Paul to fight in. Because we all know that he ain't gonna go up to heavyweight and start knocking guys out and start winning. And I mean, I'm giving Jake Paul the benefit of the doubt, but looking at his body type and where he is in boxing, I don't see Jake Paul ever moving up to heavyweight. And I mean, if he tries doing that, by all means, I hope he does not fight a fighter like, let's just say, if he fights like Steven Torres, he's like a Puerto Rican heavyweight prospect, but Steven Torres, he's not of, how should I say, super duper good skill level yet, but the way he boxes and the way he performs, he would definitely stop Jake Paul. But if that doesn't work, let's just say if Jake Paul wanted to face a heavyweight in Joey DeWechko, or I'll go with a guy like Stephen Shaw or Jermaine Franklin, he would get stopped. Or Dakari Scott. Dakari Scott would stop Jake Paul. But we all know that Jake Paul, he's not that stupid. He's gonna take a risk in fighting Tyron Woodley, and if that goes well, I could literally see him staying at cruiserweight. And if he really wants to, he could probably go out of his way and start fighting some real fighters. But I think the biggest fight for Jake Paul, but out of all fighters that actually do want to fight him, would be him and Kendall Gill. Kendall Gill, even though he was a former NBA player, he did box for like a couple of years, but Kendall Gill, he's a good test for Jake Paul. That would be a very tremendous good fight, and I'd actually like to see that, honestly. I think that fight would stylistically be a very good, tremendous fight, and it would be very good to see where that fight would go for Jake Paul's career if he were to actually land a win on Kendall. But I'm pretty sure Kendall Gill would actually give Jake Paul a tougher fight, and I don't think Jake Paul would actually last no more than 8 rounds or 6 rounds if he fought him. But let's see what happens. Let's see what happens between Jake Paul and Tyron Woodley, and if that fight with Kendall Gill can be made next, I would like to see that fight next. So yeah, that's pretty much what I have to say. I think that makes all the sense in the world. I think that makes perfect sense to have that made. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah, that's pretty much what I have to say. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'm on to the next one. All right, thank you. I'll see you guys. Bye.